Zoning Appeals. Would you please stand for the pledge? Jerry Sartain, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher.
Here.
Joe Crowell.
Here.
Jerry Sartain. Joe Machado.
Here.
Michael Rather.
Here.
Jared Barrett.
Here.
Dane Cantrell.
Present.
We do have a quorum, sir, and all voting members are present.
Okay, all regular members will be voting. Let me welcome each of you here and give you a little bit of an idea how we will proceed with our meeting. We will first have a report from our staff, and those of you who have a request before us, we'll ask you to come to the podium and give any additional information to the board that you might have other than what our staff has presented. At the end of that, we'll have a public hearing on each one of these requests. We ask that you try to keep your comments within 3 minutes. You know, we can go on forever and ever in some of these meetings, but if you'll try to make your point within 3 meetings, I think we'll be able to proceed in an efficient manner and dispense with the requests that are before us. And we do thank you for coming. We thank you for participating in our board's deliberation, and we do listen to everything that you have to say. We take the evidence and do the best we can in making those decisions that we have to make according to the laws of the state of Tennessee, the requirements by the board of directors of the county, and all other things that we have to take into consideration in making these decisions. The first item of business is a request by Carl Brosinger, who is requesting a conditional use permit to establish a radio-controlled airport. What do you have on that,
Mr. Chairman,
please?
are we going to do the minutes first? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Are we going to do the approval of the minutes first?
I think we need to do that. Do we have a motion on our minutes?
I make a motion to be approved as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have any changes that need to be made? Call a roll, please. We don't need to call a roll on that. We'll just have a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. It is passed. Thank you for calling that to my attention. We'll go on with the first item on our calendar here. Would you give us any information that you have on that at this time, please?
Okay, application 2012-52 filed by Carl Brosinger involves a property located at 1211 Coleman Road. It is a 37.4 acre parcel zone residential 15. They are seeking conditional use permit to establish a radio-controlled airplane airfield with variance relief from the development standard requiring double bituminous parking areas for property in the R15 zone. And this involves the RC Flyers Club. They fly radio-controlled airplanes, and it's a recreational use and hobby club that they also provide some educational outreach to children and interested parties. They have been located at the Middle Point landfill off of Jefferson Pike since 1994, but the site's no longer available for their use. So the site along Coleman Road was acquired by Mr. Brosinger, and they would like to establish the club meeting place at this particular site. In your staff report, I described the anticipated number of people that would be there throughout the week, during the weekends, and during events, which they would hold 2 to 3 times per year. It's their intention to eventually build a 24 by 36 pavilion at this particular site. Now, as you can see, they already have some improvements out here. You can see a taxiway and the site plan that was submitted with your staff report will show the detail and the location of the pavilion they would like to construct at this particular site. It's well off the road, and the applicant would continue to use the site for agricultural purposes in addition to this particular use that's being requested. There are no homes on this particular site, but you will see a barn at the entrance of the site. So I'm just going through the particulars. The toilet facilities will be portable and be manned monthly or whenever necessary. The area is quite open. You'll see the area that they have designated for the taxiway and for the takeoff and landing of the site. We have received multiple phone calls regarding the noise that is already being generated. It could be the applicant actually flying planes on the property, which he is entitled to. However, once the site is actually used for the club purposes, it might generate additional noise, and you might hear from some neighboring property owners regarding that. I actually passed out an ordinance for you that does not apply to this particular property, but you can take it into consideration when making your final decision. So we do have a couple phone calls that were against the proposed request. The area is rural in nature. It's much different than the site that they have been operating at, with no complaints for the last 18 years. And this is a close-up of the site plan showing where their anticipated parking area is, the pavilion site, and a taxiway, and just an overall survey of the particular site and the aerial. And that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this request? Come around, please.
Good evening. My name is Dan Wandell, and I'm representing the Middle Point RC Flyers Model Airplane Club for this petition. We do have in attendance Mr. Carl Bronier, who is the property owner, in the event that there happens to be any questions from the board. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to describe our club, some of our history, and why we're here today with this petition. The Middle Point RC Flyers Model Airplane Club is a 501c7 not-for-profit organization that is engaged in aero modeling activities, educational activities in the community. We've been doing this now for approximately 30 years or more in the Murfreesboro area. We are a sanctioned club by the Academy of Model Aeronautics, which is an international aero modeling organization that provides grants, training information, insurance coverage, guidance on issues that might arise from safety, etc. So as a sanctioned organization, we do prescribe to the regulations and the rules from the AMA organization. We currently have approximately 100 members. They do vary throughout the year. Approximately 10 to 15% on an annual basis are junior members. Those are kids, of course, in elementary, middle, or high school. So we have a pretty good representation of youth in our organization. Naturally, our primary activity is in the construction and flying of remote control model aircraft. But we also do quite a bit more than just simply gather out at the field and fly aircraft. As was alluded to in our petition, we do engage ourselves in the community in youth-oriented activities. We are active with the Boy Scouts with their aviation merit badges, Cub Scouts getting hands-on flight training and exposure to model aircraft. We're involved with Vacation Bible Schools. We put on some demonstrations for them as well, either at our site or at their site as safety would allow. We have numerous members who are involved with Science Olympiad at the local high school level in the aviation side of those programs. and we have members who have initiated and supported VOTEC programs, whether it's aviation-related or technically oriented programs at schools. So we're a broad organization, and we pride ourselves on being involved in the community. One of the things we do is, and it's part of our charter, is to support nonprofit organizations as well. We've been doing this ever since we had been founded. The charity that we currently work with, we hold events, fundraisers, that type of thing, is Toys for Tots. We've donated over $2,500 in the last 4 to 5 years through the efforts of our members and the community in general. So there's more to us than simply flying the aircraft. As I alluded, we have been in this area for quite some time, and we have flown at numerous sites in and around the Murfreesboro area. Most recently, our flying site had been, as mentioned, the Allied waste facility at the landfill. We flew off the buffer area, which was outside of the landfill, close to Jefferson Pike. We've been there for 18 years. We've, unfortunately, because of the landfill expansion, we found our space being compressed, and it was no longer a viable operation for us. So, therefore, we're looking for a new facility, which we found on Coleman Road. So, we're hoping to make that our new home. It was alluded to, but I think it's very important to mention to the members of the board that we have operated this past 18 years under a special use permit at that site and that facility. So the special use permit for aeromodeling activities is not new to this board. It's not new to this area. We've been operating on that for 18 years. And what we're asking is to initiate a special use permit to cover the new site that we're at. So our permit proposal, as you saw, was essentially to create a fabric or grass runway area initially for the takeoff and landing of aircraft, an open-air pavilion, roughly, I believe, 24 by 36 feet, an entry drive parking area to accommodate our members, our guests, and other spectators or visitors that may come out on occasion. One last item that I really want to comment on is we contacted each of the neighbors on the Coleman Road and along the outskirts of our facility, discussed with them in detail what our plans were, what we were looking to do, what we were about, what our organization was about, what our intentions were. We did ask them specifically because there has been modeling activity going on there. It's been at the invitation of the property owner. It's not formal club activities, but there has been some activity there. So they've experienced, as far as the neighbors, the aircraft flying. We did ask them what concerns, if any, they may have, if they have any objections, if they have any comments that we could take into account. And also, we took the opportunity to present a petition that, if they were so inclined, that they could sign in support of this particular petition. With one exception, in that there was an individual we just could never get in contact with. We just, that happens. You can't get everybody. With that exception, and with the exception of a party that is probably here represented tonight, we were met with 100% success on the petition. There was no objections. There was no problems. They were glad to sign the petition in support of it. And I supplied, along with a copy of the petition, a copy of the Rutherford County GIS overview map. And in there, I identified the central point of our activities, distance measurements from where we would intend to occupy to the various residents, and then further, I circled those that have been affirmative in our petition. I think it's important to note that you'll see that those individuals who are closest to our activity, since the issue of noise had been brought up, are in support and had not issued any concern or complaint regarding any noise, any flying activities, or anything in our proposal. So,
I have a couple of quick questions here for you. Give us an estimate of how many people will do you expect to be flying at one time? Are there times that you have everybody there? And what are the hours? And will the flights be over the property? I'm assuming you're leasing this property or the airport area.
So the intention is to lease the property from Mr. Brogan here. To answer your question, our guidelines restrict aircraft to 5 at any one time in the air. Typically, we find that we fly a lot less than 5 in the air.
I'm sorry, 5 at one time?
5 at one time maximum. Typically, it's much less than that, simply because we enjoy watching others fly, so we don't often have 5 in the air at one time. Many of our aircraft, I guess I should point out, are electric powered, and they generate virtually no noise whatsoever. So those aircraft are of no concern, really, to anybody. And I'm sorry, sir, the other question?
Just how many you would have at one time, and would you be over this airport area, the leased area, where
Yes.
you would be flying?
Yeah, our flying area, if you were to look at the map up there, essentially the runway runs, well, you can see where the runway is. Our flight area would be north. That hash-marked area is the area typically that our aircraft would fly. Safety procedures do not permit aircraft to fly behind us, so any area to the south would be off limits. We would only fly north of that area, and certainly east and then west.
What I mean, what is the typical distance from when you take off? How far out? You know, there's a limit.
I understand. Well, often a lot of the smaller planes, it's visual, it's line of sight, and aircraft get awful small when they get far out. So typically you're looking at probably 500 to 800 feet distance forward. Certainly smaller aircraft would fly within a more narrow area, but they could be, I would say probably 750 to 800 feet maximum distance away typically.
Then would you avoid flying over other people's property?
Generally speaking, there's one property line that we would fly over, and the owner of that property and us are in agreement that overflight over his area is fine.
Okay.
But beyond that, again, we would not fly to the south because of safety concerns, overflight over people. So we would not be flying to the southern property. We have plenty of distance to the east, to the west, that we would remain over our property. The only property we would overfly is that property to the north.
Okay, give us a little rundown on your schedule, when you would schedule this. How does your schedule run?
According to our application, we did reference hours of operation of no sooner than 9 a.m. in the morning through roughly dusk. Now, one thing I want to point out is that's the schedule for our internal combustion engines, that is glow-powered planes or gas engine airplanes that might be noise generators. The electric-powered aircraft, they're virtually silent. You know, there's some noise certainly, but it's being electric, there's virtually nothing. So the restriction for them would not be as stringent as the 9 a.m. They could come out earlier in the morning than that. We typically operate 7 days a week, at least it's available 7 days a week, but quite frankly, the busiest times are during the weekends, because most folks are either working or their schedule doesn't permit them to fly during the weekdays. But that does happen occasionally, retired folks or
And
others.
would you
light
have
schedules.
someone there monitoring the airport at all times, that you would have someone there?
Only members of the club are permitted to fly there unless they're guests of a member and the members there in attendance. Certainly, we don't have a control tower. We don't have an individual that's stationed there all the time, but only club members are permitted to use the facility. And that's because, of course, it is a club, and we're maintaining and putting money into that club. Also, from a safety perspective, we want to make sure folks are in tune to the rules and whatnot. So,
Now, one other question, and I'm sure the board will have a lot more to ask you here. You talk about you have insurance. You're covered by insurance.
Correct.
And I'm assuming this is liability insurance. If something should happen to cause a problem on someone else's property, that you would be insured for that.
Yes, sir. There's two levels, there's two layers of insurance. All members of the club and all flyers, even if they're guests that come out to the club, are required to be AMA members, the Academy of Model Aeronautics. By virtue of being a member of that organization, you have coverage for liability insurance to cover issues that might occur you personally. We also have a secondary level of insurance that protects property owner of the leased facility from any issues that might occur as subrogation, towards that individual. So no individual will be flying out at this facility, and we're very stringent on that. That was a requirement of our prior lease. It's a requirement of our potential current lease, that they're required to have that insurance or that membership which comes with the insurance. So, and it's substantial insurance as well.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions. Sir, how often will these 100 members assemble? You said about 23 at a time. How often?
Well, typically it's like any organization. You have 100 members, and it's the 80-20 rule. You really maybe only have 20% that are really active. Others may come out infrequently or occasionally. Typically what we see is the busy times might be the good weather weekends, and we may find 15 to 18 folks might be there typically on a weekend.
Every weekend would have 15 to 18?
Not every weekend. Again,
How many weekends out of 52?
weather dependent. When the weather is not good, whether it's windy, whether it's cold, whether it's raining, storming.
How often would you estimate out of the 52 weeks?
I mean, it's hard to estimate. I'd probably say 35.
35 weeks.
Or,
Okay,
yeah,
out of the 100
approximately,
members.
yeah. Again, it can vary, sir, yes.
Sir, out of the 100 members, how many have gasoline planes?
Again, I can only guess because I don't know what all aircraft are owned by every member of the club, but probably I would say 20
gasoline planes.
20 to 23, perhaps.
Okay, if one of these gasoline planes
And again,
crashed, what's the fire potential from the crash?
There's,
Have you ever had a fire
yeah.
from it?
well, in my 30-plus years of flying model aircraft, I've never seen a fire or any other type of incident related to the gas-powered airplanes. So it does happen that there's incidences, but there's never been a fire that I've been aware of.
Compared to a weed eater, how loud would these planes be?
Our aircraft are muffled. There's mufflers and there's other noise reducing equipment that's on the airplanes. Electrics certainly are not loud.
I'm talking about the gasoline.
They can vary. They can be quite quiet with some of the equipment that's put on them. And
Compared to a weed eater, would it be louder than a weed eater, or would it be quieter than a weed eater? Gasoline weed eater, or gasoline lawnmower?
just to answer that question, it would depend on how close you are to it. Because a weed eater, you're right there. An airplane.
If you were standing right beside of that plane and you were standing right beside a weed eater, which would be the loudest?
They would be comparable, right next to each other.
Be comparable. How about a push mower, lawnmower? Push mower. Would it be louder?
Again, fairly comparable.
Comparable.
Perhaps
lawnmower.
even a little bit quieter.
Okay, thank you a lot.
I have a question to talk about airplanes. Some of them have airplanes. Will you have any of the gas-powered type helicopters, model helicopters that'll be flying out there?
We do not restrict for fixed wing or rotorcraft, so we would allow rotorcraft certainly, and we do have members that fly those.
Okay. You said earlier, you say about 20% of your membership has gas-powered airplanes. How many would you estimate that would be flying the gas-powered helicopters?
We have some members with helicopters, but not many at all.
Okay, let me ask you this
I think
question too. Comparable to the planes and the weed eaters and the lawnmowers to these helicopters, what's the noise comparison?
Fly helicopters, but They're generally comparable or less noisy, and of course, there's a lot of electric helicopters that fly as well.
Right. All right. All right, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Joe?
Have you, during your experience flying, have you ever seen one of these aircrafts go astray? In other words, you couldn't control it, take off and gone.
Well, certainly that does happen, yes.
It does. Very often.
Fortunately, not too often, but it does occur, whether it's an equipment failure or a pilot failure.
Okay. You said a while ago, and I really didn't catch it all, about if one of them crashed, likelihood of a fire.
I can only relate to my experience and what I've read, of course, in the safety programs and all. I've never experienced a fire from any type aircraft, as far as gas-powered planes, glow-powered airplanes. We do, as part of our safety program, we maintain first aid kits, we maintain fire extinguishers, just for any such contingency. But again, I've not witnessed any type of fires from a gas-powered airplane.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Jerry?
Yeah, the fuel that you fly the plane with is not gasoline, correct?
Well, there can be, well, there are different power systems. Of course, electric, that'd be battery operated. We do have glow-powered aircraft, which is a mixture of castor oil and some other constituent, which you can try to light all you want. It's just not going to happen. But we do have aircraft that do fly with a mix of gas and oil, gasoline and oil, and that's what we are considering the gas-powered airplanes.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing. For anyone who'd like to speak on this, if you'll come to the podium, give us your name and any information you'd like to share.
My name is Tom Sage. My property is on 1320 Floriton Road. Excuse me. We own 35 acres there. Obviously, we're not on Coleman Road, but our home is probably about 200 foot, I say, or less from the corner of their property line there to, I guess that would be the east. So we could very well have from looking at this diagram up here, we could very well have the closest home to where the flying is. I may be mistaken, but we very well might. This property's been in our family for close to 50 years. My wife and I and our family were able to finally build out on this property about 10 years, so we've been living out there about 10 years now.
Would you mind pointing out clearly exactly where your house is located? Can you do that? Danielle, can you?
She's directly to the east.
Pardon?
A little bit catty corner to go to the south a little bit. It's kind of, you've got it lit up right now. Yeah, it's
Okay.
That's my property line. It's just a little bit. It's just a little bit off the screen there would be my home.
Okay.
It's closer to the corner, much closer to the corner. That's where our pond is, right there, probably.
Where that is
Yeah,
showing
right,
there.
Right at,
Okay, and your home is a little closer.
I was
Okay. Thank you.
I got several concerns. When we got word that the club might be coming out there, we were kind of intrigued by it and fascinated by it. And it wasn't too long when we heard the planes. I assume it's the gasoline planes out there. And, of course, we were intrigued by that. And the hobby's obviously a great hobby. But then, 2 or 3 weekends, 4 weekends, and we got to talking, my wife and I. And like I said, we plan on staying out there the rest of our lives. And for some reason, we sit up on a rise, and we thought maybe that bit of forest you're seeing right there in the picture would be a good buffer and it wouldn't be much of a problem for us. But I guess when the planes get up to an elevation, it seems to shoot straight over to our house. So we're hearing it pretty loud and clear. Of course, loud's a matter of opinion. I don't know. It does sound like a weed eater, on the next property. But the fact is, we had to ask ourselves, is this something we want to hear every weekend for the rest of our lives? And the answer is no. We don't want to hear gasoline planes on our, and we spend a lot of time out there. That's where we are on our weekends. That's what we enjoy. That's why we're out there. So I have a real concern about the noise of the gasoline planes. One of the commissioners mentioned fire. It's just, we're always sensitive to fire out there. This last summer is a good example of how brutal it can be, and we were really on pins and needles on any kind of fires with all the cedars and grass out there. So from reading up, I've tried to research, and because I've struggled in my own mind where a compromise can be made on this, or where everyone can do what they need to do, but I haven't found it yet. But I saw on the internet where gasoline fires are a problem with these planes sometimes when they hit the ground, and obviously you got gasoline, you got ignited fire right there. So worried about that because we worry about fires out there all the time. From talking to the staff, it's my understanding that unless it's a major subdivision, there's really not noise ordinances in place in the county for rural areas. I may be misstating that, but that's a concern too. Whatever happens out there, if the fact that we don't have a noise ordinance, or probably the ability to enforce it, we're opening the door here, and it's going to be something that's going to be here. I imagine the club would hope to be there as long as they can, and I'm really concerned about that. Another thing that came up, and I don't know what's going to be decided here in the future on this, and I do appreciate the planning staff. All the conversations I've had with the planning staff have been very professional and forthcoming, and I'm proud to say it's our planning staff in this county. So whatever happens, I appreciate that. I want to say that. But at the same time, they told me that, I think it was alluded to earlier, that an owner, whether it be myself or any of the neighbors, could take a gasoline plane up and fly it. It's okay to do as long as it's on your own land. So if there are conditions of some kind put here, and I hope there is, and I don't see anything around not, I'd be opposed to gasoline on weekends. I think once we open the door on that, we're going to be listening to them off our back porch every weekend for the rest of the time we live there. I don't think we should have to. But if there's a situation where the owner can fly, I don't know how the lease works, but if the owner can fly a plane, then all of a sudden we get in this little bit of cat and mouse game where every time there's a gasoline plane go up, we go over there and talk about it, and then, it's the owner's plane. It's not the club's plane. So I hope whatever's considered that, we take that into consideration in the end. I haven't talked to any of the folks from the club myself, and I wish I had. I'm sure they're a great bunch of people, but I don't know anything about the petition they talked about. I'd heard a day or two ago that there was some kind of petition, but I guess myself living on Floriton Road, those of y'all know that area of the country, Floriton Road and Coleman Road are real close together. So most of the properties on Floriton Road back up to the properties on Coleman Road because they parallel each other and those two roads are close together. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have a question for you, Joe.
Sir, they're already flying, right? They fly every weekend now? This is pretty?
Well, the last couple of weekends I have not heard any flying.
How much flying do you hear through the week now with gasoline motors?
During the week? Well, I'm usually working during the week, so I don't have a lot of opportunity to know about that. But, we're, like I said, like they're flying on weekends. We're usually home on weekends. I do work kind of a varied schedule where I go in later, sometimes work later, go in earlier. I have not heard during the week myself. It's all been on weekends.
How many planes do you think you hear at a time on the weekends?
I don't know if I could know, sir. It sounds like one, but it could be more than one. I don't know. My eyesight ain't the greatest. I hear it more than I can see them, but.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello. My name is Lisa Craig. My family was the Messick family that actually owned the property that they're wanting this on. My dad and his family moved there in 1943, January of 43, so they'll be having their 70th year of being on that property. My uncle owned the property prior to it being sold in April of this year. My husband and I actually bought the tract that runs horizontal with that, and then we own, with my brother and my sister-in-law, about 126 acres additional to that 51 acres. The noise is my biggest concern, and I have voiced it. I've called the president of the club and the owner of the property, and they have been very nice. They have been to my house. They've listened to the noise. They've assured me that they will do something about it. My reason being here is I want to be sure that there are rules and regulations that need to be followed. Because, like Mr. Sage, I don't want to listen to that the rest of my days. And, you know, we've been there. I've never lived anywhere else. I've lived on that property all my life. It's going to be a fourth-generation farm. And as far as petition, I don't think 100% was asked, because I know of 4 right off the top of my head that wasn't asked. There is activity during the week. We have I'm at home a lot, so I'm outside and inside. I have my windows up. I can hear the gas planes with my windows down. I can hear them in my house. And if it's okay, if I can play a recording.
Just for a second.
Okay. I don't know if I can hear that.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. That is setting in my backyard. And we're approximately 2,500 feet from the airstrip. The runway strip is 159 feet, 7 inches from my property line, the property that we purchased in April. It sounds like you have started a chainsaw and threw it straight up in the air. And, you know, that's my biggest complaint, and that's basically why I'm here. I don't really care for the gas planes.
Thank you very much.
And I also would like to know the hours and you know, does the club have guidelines for the noise? Do they themselves set guidelines? Do they ask their members to be respectful of other people?
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Craig, to this map right here, where is your residence?
That little 1389 in the corner, the left?
Yes, ma'am.
That's me.
Okay.
That's my house.
Okay. And you were saying the recording you had for us was you standing in your backyard?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. Anyone else, please?
I'm Richard Messick, 1550 Coleman Road, just around the curve from Lisa Craig. Coleman Road, right past Lisa's house, my sister, makes a 90-degree turn to your left, and I'm the next residence past there. I'm out of the picture as far as my residence goes. But all the property from the bottom red line on down, coming on down to the next tree line that you see, that's Lisa and Charles Craig's property that they bought, and then The next green 3 fields are our farm, my little sister, and myself. The noise of these gas engines, don't get me wrong, we're not against the battery or electric powered planes, but the noise level of these gasoline engines is, on the weekends, sometimes it's just intolerable. These guys have been flying practically since they bought the property on the weekends, and especially since they put down the fabric runway. That you had a picture of it on one of your screens. This fabric probably went down maybe in June of this year, sometime in that neighborhood. And these guys, I farm for a living and am at home quite a bit. They're flying during the week, not long times, but now on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, if it's a pretty weekend, there's quite a bit going on down at that airport. Yeah, there's the fabric runway. Once it got down for them to take off and land, instead of taking off and landing on the grass sod, the flying increased quite a bit. And like I say, I'm not against the battery planes or the electric planes, but the gasoline powered ones. And then, I don't know, I need to ask a question to someone. There is no noise abatement laws, state of Tennessee or the county of Rutherford?
We do have local noise limits that have been adopted for subdivisions, properties located in subdivisions, and this area is not located within a subdivision. Therefore, those limits would not apply. And I can't speak for, I don't believe that there are any state requirements. I mean, Division of Motors might have some, but that involves roads and right-of-ways, so.
May I show you something?
Yes, sir.
This is the AMA, the people that regulate the engine, planes, and this is about the noise abatement. And read this line here.
Okay. So, Mr. Messi, is that right? Messick. He has submitted copies of guidelines from the AMA, which has a statement regarding a local ordinance, which the local ordinance we have only applies to properties located within subdivisions. However, I will give this to the chairperson.
We're already aware of that, so, yeah, you need to hang on to that.
350-foot line. And I guess the only other concern I have is our livestock. We own horses and we own cattle, and eventually our cattle is going to run within 160 feet of this runway. Once we get some fencing done, I've just recently worked the field up adjoining this property. We've resold it in grass, and I've had it sold for 3 weeks come Saturday. And as soon as we get some better fencing, permanent fencing, our livestock is going to come within 160 feet of that runway, horses and cattle.
Joe, do you have a question?
Are you saying, sir, do you think this planes could stampede your cattle and they would run through the fences?
Possibly, maybe if there were a crash. As far as the noise level,
would you have a large herd next to this within 150 feet?
approximately 35 to 40 head of cattle.
Well, they could be a large stampede, in other words.
Yes, sir, if something disturbed them. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Jerry?
Mr. Messick, to give us more of a perspective, something to compare it with, you being a farmer, do you think the planes are louder to you than, say, your farm equipment is to your neighbors?
Yes, sir, I do. I do. And also my farm equipment, I go in and do my work in a hayfield. I'm only in a hayfield twice a year. I'm in the hayfield once in the spring, once in the fall.
That's fine. I was looking for a comparison. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Jernigan.
Frank Jernigan, I'm a county commissioner in this area. I have had numerous calls about this on some concerns, and I've got several things written here that people is concerned about. One question would be about how many people who come fly are not members. In other words, he says he ain't got less than 100 members. How many can they invite out there and fly? In other words, they may want to have something on the weekend and have 200 or 300 come in there if it ain't nothing to keep you from doing. That's a concern of people. The second one, if one of these gas planes crashes off the airport property and sets a fire, say dry conditions like we had there a year or two, how are they equipped to handle this? And if it destroys property, do they have insurance to cover the damages? Most of the people, well, just about all the people I've talked to, they really don't have no concern much about battery and electrical. I mean, they probably wish the airport wasn't there, but you got to be reasonable too. So battery and electrical, if this is going to be approved, my opinion, that's all they ought to be flying on this airport. I don't think they ought to be flying gas for that. The last question here, are they going to have events on the big weekend where crowds would come? In other words, can they say they're going to set up an event, invite people from other clubs, come in, set up, stay the weekend? I don't think that should be allowed. I think if it is approved, I think it ought to be approved for the members only, and it would definitely be, want to make sure it would be electrical and battery only. I don't think I ought to be flying none of the gas ones out there myself.
Any question? Joe?
Commissioner Jernigan, are you recommend this be turned down?
The majority of them talk to really don't want it.
Don't want
But
it.
I'm saying if it is approved, I think it ought to be battery and electrical only.
In other words, your people wouldn't mind it if it was approved for electric only.
That'd be the only thing they would tolerate.
But they would tolerate that. How about if they invited other clubs and had 200 or 300 people there? Would they object to that?
Well, I'm saying it ought to be put in there that that shouldn't be allowed.
Members only?
Well, I mean, I don't know what you can keep a person bringing a person or two with him, but I'm talking about you advertising all over the country and have people come in for an event or something.
Well, they have 100 members. If they bought the spouses, that would be 200 people if they were all married.
If they was all there, but
Would the roads take care of that?
that's another thing. You got a country road there going in and out, and
Thank you a lot.
just
Any other questions? Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate you being here and give us your information out there. Do we have anyone else wants to speak on this?
Mr.
Come
Chair,
around, please.
My name is Jim Powers. I'm the president of Middle Point RC Flyers, and I've listened to some of the concerns that the neighbors have stated. Number one, with the gas airplanes and the fires. In 18 years of flying at the landfill, we have never had a fire from an airplane that crashed. The engines that are on there are comparable to a weed eater engine. And if you can imagine, when the plane crashes, the engine's going to stop running. The engine stops running, there's really nothing to ignite a fire. The gas tank's located back inside the aircraft, and there's not going to be any gas getting there. So fires have never been a problem. We haven't had anything with that. The other thing, the statement was made that the neighbors don't want this. I circulated the petition that you have in front of you today. I talked to each one of the neighbors that's their address are circled on that paper that you were given on the map with the lines that run out there. It shows the distance from the runway out to the people's house. At the very end of our driveway, 1235 would be the address. The woman there is home all the time. I've talked to her. She said she's never heard the planes other than when she's outside. She'll hear them fly occasionally, but it's not a problem. She's excited to have us in the neighborhood. Across the street from her at 1216, Wayne, I don't recall his last name, same thing. They're excited to have us in the neighborhood. They came down, brought their grandkids down there to watch the planes fly, and he said he's never had a problem with the noise from the airplanes, and he's happy to see us in there. Reed, which would be the, as you head back up, the 1107, which is the first house to the, I believe that's to the west of our driveway. Same thing, they signed a petition. They said that they're happy to have us in the neighborhood. They sit out in the backyard and they'll watch the planes sometimes fly. They have a view there where they can see the planes a little bit. They said they enjoy it. They're glad to have us in the neighborhood. And the same with the rest of the neighbors. And everyone that I talked to that signed this petition, because we had had discussions before with Lisa Craig about noise. We talked to her and we've tried to work with her to limit the amount of noise that the planes make and see what we can do to make that less of a problem. But every one of these neighbors that I talked to, I asked them specifically, has the noise been a problem for you? And every one of them told me no, that they occasionally, when they're out in the yard, they can hear the planes fly. They don't hear them fly when they're in the house. Other than that, they don't have a problem with it. These neighbors are the closest neighbors to where we fly. Of course, I'm going by where the houses are located. You know, if you look at the open fields, I don't know what you'd consider there. We look at how close we are to houses. When we had to move from the landfill, we looked quite a bit for another field to fly at. And our main objective was to find some place that would be safe, away from any roads, away from any houses, and away from anybody else's property. The property that's directly in front of our runway belongs to Lynn Isel or whatever. I can't pronounce his last name, I'm not sure. His name is also on the petition. Lynn has allowed us to take down some trees, told us we can overfly his property anytime we want to. We could go over there if we needed to, if there was a plane that needed to be retrieved. We do not overfly anybody else's property besides his and ours.
Any question, Joe?
Sir, I got a question. Why would Mr. Lynn let you cut the trees down? Did you have Did you buy the right to do that, or he was just a nice? Did the guy that let you cut the trees down? Did you buy that right, or he just a nice guy and let you do it? The guy that let you cut his trees down.
Yes.
Did you pay him for that right, or was he just a nice guy and let you do that?
No, we didn't pay him for the right.
No pay whatsoever.
He just allowed us to do that.
If we approve this tonight, battery planes only, would you have any problem with that?
Yes, sir.
You would.
Yes, sir. Half of our members are better fly.
Well, just a minute. The guy that just got up said you only had 20 gasoline planes out of the 100.
No, sir.
That's what the first guy that spoke.
He said we had about 20 members
That had gasoline planes.
Gasoline airplanes. Then we also have nitro-powered airplanes that fly on nitro fuel.
Well, it's still fuel.
Right.
No matter, the noise level would be the same, where it's propane or gas.
I'm talking about just gas-powered airplanes. I would say 50 to 60.
Sir, would you come back to the podium? I know acoustics are terrible in here, but come back to the podium
I still
so
haven't
we
got
all can
the
hear.
answer I want.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The first gentleman said you had 20 gasoline-powered planes or fuel-powered planes, and now you tell me you have how many? 50% of them.
I think what he meant was that we have 20 members that have planes that fly on gasoline and oil mix, which would be the same as a weed eater. But we also have members that fly on nitro fuel. This is fuel that you buy from the hobby shop.
But the noise level would be the same no matter what fuel, right?
Pardon me?
No matter what fuel you were flying, the noise level would probably be the same.
Okay, if that were the case,
So
we have,
you got 50 members that fly fuel-powered planes.
I would say at least 60, 70% of the members
Fly fuel-powered planes.
fly fueled airplanes, yes.
Thank you a lot.
Joe?
At any one given event you might have out there, what would be the maximum number of people would be out there?
Normally at an event, I think the most registered flyers that we've ever had were around 30 pilots.
And you would only have 5 flights at a time.
We would have 4 to 5 flight stations. The maximum we would ever allow to fly at one time would be 5, or it could possibly be 4. We haven't actually set up the flight stations yet. We didn't get the runway established and start flying there until sometime in July.
Okay. Joe, go ahead.
Is there a way to muffle a noise on all of your aircraft down to a different level?
All the aircraft that we fly have mufflers. We do not allow anybody to fly without a muffler on their airplane. The mufflers on these planes are more expensive and better than the mufflers that you have on weed eaters. A weed eater is typically just a little muffler that bolts on, but they have a more expensive, a better made muffler than what you'd have on a weed eater.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple, Mr. Chairman. Back to the question you said you would have 35, if you had an event, you would have about 35 people there flying, but in an event where you would have that, how many people actually would be on property at that time? I know you said you would have about 35 flyers, but are they bringing spouses, children? So in other words, when you have an event, how many people would probably be at that event at one time?
If I understand you correct, I apologize again, my hearing's not that good. If I understand you correctly, you're saying if we have an event and we were to have 30 registered pilots, how many people would be there? Probably, occasionally we get spectators. A lot of times the neighbors come down to watch. Family comes in. You might get 50 or 60 people there. And that's a big turnout for our events. A normal weekend, usually our busiest day is Sunday afternoon after church. And guys start coming out probably around 11 to 12 o'clock. And if we see 10, 15 pilots out there, that's a good afternoon. Occasionally we might see a few more. And the other thing is everybody doesn't fly at the same time. Normally, we'll have one person fly or maybe two people fly at the same time, but we don't get a lot of people that fly together. They'll wait till somebody else gets done.
One other question: when you have your events, do you allow camping and overnight stay on this site?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand it.
Yeah, just make sure and watch that. I said, when you have your events on the weekends, do you allow camping and overnight staying there on your site?
Yes, we do occasionally. Not very often. We might have one event a year that we would invite people that come in from out of town to bring campers and that out there and stay, but that's not, very seldom anybody spends the night at the field.
Okay. Well, when you do have an event and you allow people to come and camp with campers and tents and stuff like that, how many would you estimate would be there camping at one time?
How many would there be there?
Yes, on your property camping overnight.
At the other field, I think there was one time that we had people that came with a camper, and there's only one camper that showed up for that event.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. Anyone else? Commissioner, come on. We're going to cut off the discussion after this unless the board has some more information they'd like to gather.
Look at this petition that they got the people to sign. One of them on here is Mr. Ansel himself, and he lives about 7 miles from there, around on Murray Kittrell. So I don't think you'd be counting him. And then you got four out of the others, it lives down towards your bridge, away from this up here. So really, you ain't got but about 3 people right there that I'd say is as close as they talking about. If they did on where he's talking about having an event once a year, wouldn't they have to get a permit for that before they could just come in and have camping, overnight stay and all?
Their request includes the special events. However, camping was not a factor that was considered because it was not mentioned in the application.
Well, if it's in their request, then if this board approves it, I want to make sure it's put down there that they ain't gonna have but one a year. If according to her, if they got a permit, they want to do what they want to do.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I could mention one thing, please. There was a witness who spoke a minute ago and played a recording. If that witness wants the board to consider that recording in the deliberations, then that recording needs to be made part of the record.
The lady who played the recording, if you will turn that in to our secretary at the end of this, that will meet our requirement. I think we have a pretty good indication now of what's being requested there. And I don't mean to, I apologize if I'm cutting you off. I don't mean to do that. But we've got a pretty good idea of what it is. Unless the board needs further information, I think we're at a point now that we can make a decision. So I'm going to close the public hearing. And if you have some discussion now, we'll accept that. Okay, do we have a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jernigan got up and recommended this be turned down. And the gentleman says he would not agree for battery-powered planes only. I wouldn't have any trouble making a motion to approve battery-powered planes only. But if I lived in that area, I would not want that noise 35 weekends a year. So I'm going to make a motion to turn this down on the grounds of the noise to the people who live in this area. And the commissioner should know his people, and he recommended it be turned down. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Have a second. Any discussion? Call a roll, please.
I got a question before we vote, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
I am clear that if we turn this down, it does not keep the property owner or his guests from flying what they want to fly.
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Do you have a different interpretation of that?
No, we wouldn't. I mean, the sign obviously would need to be removed. Any indicator that it was anything other than the private property owner using his property in a manner at which he enjoys and desires to with invited guests, he would be able to do that.
Does our esteemed attorney have a different opinion? I want to make sure everybody understood this. I understood that the homeowner, the property owner, can have his flight there. They don't need a permission to do that, and he can invite some people in to do that. So there is that possibility. I want all of you to know that, okay? Yes.
I think with that being said, and the county attorney can affirm this, that the property owners out there still have recourse should they choose to fly these planes, and the noise from those planes, whether it be from planes or dogs or anything else, being a nuisance, they still have recourse in the civil arena. Am I correct in saying that, counsel?
I suppose that could be considered an option for the property owners out there, but that would be up for them to research and look into.
Any other questions or comment? We have a motion on the floor. Are we ready to vote on this? Call a roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Kroll,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
No.
Jane Cantrell.
Yes.
Carries.
Request has been denied. Okay, the next item we have is a request by Bobby and Amy Covington, who's requesting a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling. And this is in a R15 zone. What do you have on that, please?
Application 2012-53, filed by Bobby and Amy Covington, involves the property located at 5493 Almaville Road. It's a 5.08 acre parcel and located in a residential 15 zone. And they are seeking conditional use permit to allow the establishment of an attached accessory dwelling unit greater than 25% of the gross floor area of the principal structure on a property located in the R15 zone. The applicant is currently constructing their residence on this property, and during construction, they are also including constructing a space above an attached garage that will contain an independent living unit for a relative to reside in. And this is a picture of the principal residence being constructed, and this is the attached garage with the second floor. That's where the living or accessory dwelling will be located. We have standards, and they could come under the by right provision. However, it's limited to 25% of the gross floor area of the principal structure, and this attached dwelling unit, accessory dwelling unit, exceeds that 25% threshold. Therefore, they have to come before the board to obtain approval. However, if you see from the photos, it's being integrated with the principal structure. No one from the road would be able to tell that it has a separate unit or a second unit in it. It is subordinate to the principal structure. We've only received phone calls requesting information regarding the case. However, I did pass out a letter that was submitted to us today to each of you in the pre-meeting that indicated support for this particular application. Staff finds it generally meets the criteria and recommends approval with conditions. And we posted the sign on the site, and as you can see, these are the surrounding properties as well as the subject property. And that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll please come around.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Covington. I'm here representing my husband and myself. The planning staff pretty much adequately outlined what our request is, and we thank you for your consideration for this. Basically, we are adding a mother-in-law apartment over our garage. It does exceed the 25% square footage by 439 feet, so just for your information. And I think they've covered it, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those at this time.
Any questions? Thank you. You may be seated. I'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to be approved.
We have someone here that'd like to speak. Sorry, didn't see you.
My name is Charles Graves, and I live at 5555 Almaville Road, which is adjacent to this property. All the property in this area is 5 acres or plus. Most of the houses are 4,000 square feet plus. This new house is compatible to the neighborhood, even with a mother-in-law apartment above the garage. I have a 2.5 car garage, and my area above the garage is similar to this area, although it's not occupied by my parents. It's occupied by grandchildren. So we think that the addition of this house as a total will be a addition to the neighborhood. It will probably increase the value of other property in the long run. So my family and I support the variance.
Anyone else? You may be seated. We'll close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to be approved.
We have a motion to be approved. We have a second.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Call a roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Thane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
It is approved. The next item we have is a request by Samuel and Amy Wright, who's requesting a conditional use permit for special events. And there's some requirements, relief, that you probably need to discuss that with us.
Application 2012-54, filed by Samuel and Amy Wright, involves the property located at 2281 Thompson Road. It's a 10.5-acre parcel located in the R15 zone. They are seeking conditional use permit approval for special events with variance relief to the 2,500 square foot maximum for detached accessory structures and variance relief from the development standard requiring double bituminous parking areas in the R15 zone. The applicant would like to obtain approval to hold special events on the property, weddings, family reunions, picnics, and they'd like to offer the property or market it as like an upscale, rustic type venue that people could rent and have their events on the property. Their plan is to use a barn or rebuild a barn which is relocated from another site in the county as the main event location, and additional structures that are already on the property will be used for other types of uses during these events. As you can see in the staff report, we've included the hours of operation and some of the parameters for which the venue will be operated. And I've received 1 or 2 informational calls regarding this application. We've not received any calls in opposition. The structure itself, the barn, is being constructed now under the agricultural exemption because it is a barn, and the owner is taking a risk that if this does get disapproved, he will need to use the barn as a barn. However, he is documenting every stage of construction to demonstrate to the building department, should they obtain approval for the barns used for human occupancy for assembly uses, to demonstrate that the building is sound and meets the current code. That comes into play where if the use of the structure is approved for the venue, his detached accessory structure limit of 2,500 square feet for properties 5 acres or greater will be exceeded by the addition of this venue or detached accessory structure. So that describes one of the variance relief requests that's contained in the staff report. And the second variance relief they are seeking is the relief from the standard that requires paved parking. Because this area is rural in nature, they want to retain this rural appearance, and that the property itself will not be used continuously for the proposed use. They would like relief from that requirement. And staff is recommending approval with conditions, and that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this request? Would come around, please.
Hello.
Sure. Go ahead.
Nice to see you. We're Sam and Amy Wright, and we own the property at 2281 Thompson Road. We actually have kind of a unique situation here. It's going to be a ton of fun. Our daughter is getting married on December 31st, New Year's Eve of this year. And she came to us and said she wanted this rustic barn wedding. Like, okay, we'll go see if we can find that. So we started looking all over the place and going, and really, quite frankly, we didn't find anything here in the county. We found several locations in Williamson County, one in Wilson County. There is a location or two here in Rutherford County that are open-air pavilions and things like that, but nothing that's closed in, particularly for cool weather. So we did find one in Williamson County, and they just told us, no, it's New Year's Eve, no. And we got to talking about it and said, we have this, thank you so much. Next one, thanks. So we started looking for, or working on the thoughts of what can we do to have this on our property. So with that in mind, we decided, we need to build this barn. We have a beautiful property sitting in a rural setting, and we can do that ourselves. So we decided to find a barn and to build one. I'm sorry, I didn't see that was up there. Let me tell you real quickly about what we're trying to do, and then I'll continue on with that. We want to have a place for people to come and have weddings, anniversaries, special event type things at our property, as well as some charitable events, things for outreach for the community, and things like that we intend to tithe, right? So we start looking for this barn. You can go to the next one if you don't mind. And we found a barn out on Manchester Highway. Some of you may have driven past and seen this barn being disassembled. Betsy Taylor, Clark Maples' daughter, owns the barn. And I asked if I could go in and measure it for a framing plan. I'm a remodeling contractor. And she said, well, you can go in the barn, be careful, things falling down. And we went inside, and here is this 120-year-old structure. It's got cedar shingles on the thing, with these beautiful lacy trusses on it, these big oak beams, cedar logs standing up. It is an absolutely beautiful barn that was headed for the ground. It was rotted at the bottom. So I said, man, I called her up. I said, Betsy, I take stuff like that down. I charge for it. Can I have that barn if I take it down? And she said, I told her, our daughters actually went to school together, and she said we could come and get it and take it if we'd remove it and clean it up. So we've been numbering that barn, taking the thing apart, and it is almost all the way down. We're moving the wood to our property right now. You saw the picture. We have a pad put down. We're going to stand it back up, brace it like the Dickens. We're documenting every step that we go into when we're done it. It's been up 120 years, and we're going to try to build it back over the last 200. We're going to brace and cross-brace it, and put up a new siding on the outside, and build a really nice structure there. Yes, I'm a contractor. That's what I do. All right, next one.
Any
So what we're
questions?
asking for is a conditional use permit to convert that barn. I'm sorry.
Go.
Sir, how many people at one time?
At the wedding would probably have around 150 is what we're anticipating.
150. Alcohol? Any alcohol?
There would be a bartender. Yes,
It'd
sir.
be what?
A bartender required.
You have a policeman on duty when this took place?
We've not found that to be common among venues.
If you had 150 people and you had alcohol, more than likely you would have some problems. I seen on TV recently where they had a riot and a person lost his life due to a heart attack.
If that's something that the county requests us to do, we'd certainly, we're going to do whatever y'all tell us to do. We've just done the research talking to other venues and other counties that are doing this, and we've not found that to be the case. That it seems like the requirement to have a bartender who is responsible and is monitoring alcohol consumption is something that, whether you require it or not, we're going to require it. We have to have monitoring of alcohol on the property. And I wouldn't think that everybody that comes to have a wedding is going to use alcohol, but if they do, they'd have to have a bartender there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated.
I had a couple more. I thought he just had a question.
Pardon me?
Had just a little bit more.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. And I'll move quickly, just in the next couple of minutes. Basically, the property is laid out nearly 11 acres. We've cut a glade in the top of the area. Rather than having a paved parking lot, we're going to put down a crushed rock base and then come over that with rock and then put topsoil on top of that and grow grass. It'll be a grass-covered parking area capable of handling around 65 cars. The cars will be hidden from the road. They'll drive back up to the top over a ridge. There's not an adjoining property that is within. We have one neighbor that is probably 500-600 feet from where the barn will be located. The rest of them, one of the developers here in town, Keith and Teresa Harmon, they are next door neighbors. They're all for this. Say, man, do it. Their house is probably 3 football field lengths from the barn. Our neighbors around us have weddings. We just had one 2 weekends ago just down the road. Our neighborhood is conducive to that, so people just host weddings and parties. There's usually an event at one of the houses around us every other weekend. One of the homes around us will have 20, 30 cars every other weekend, just people coming over. It's just the type of road that we're on. You can go ahead if you like. We do have a fire hydrant on the property. There's a little log cabin that we're going to use for groom's quarters. That we have cut the road from the back and then to the parking area and then to the barn. You can go ahead. I talked about that. Go ahead. I just want you to see some pictures. We're off of Thompson Road. Our house is 1/10 of a mile from the road back up to the front porch of our house. Go ahead. And we will have I imagine some people will want to be on the front lawn and have their weddings there, but the majority of them will be out in the field past that horse barn, which is where people come in a little road. We'll have valet parking. They'll take their cars and hide them from the road, and they'll walk to the back or be driven to the back where the barn will be at. That is our little log cabin where we'll have groom's quarters. Go ahead. And this is the barn. Did you want to say something? This was the barn that Betsy and Carl Maples have given to us. And it's hard to see that picture, but the doggone thing is just, it's a piece of history. It's really neat to be having that come back up. She told me a couple of days ago, we were trying to figure out exactly how old it is. Her grandmother, she has a picture of her grandmother in front of that barn in 1913. So it's at least that old, so it's really cool. Okay. And we're counting some trails just for people to walk back and forth. What we think will happen is as we've started looking at this and researching this, we've found that a lot of people are going to places like Carton Plantation, or they'll go up to Legacy Farms in Lebanon, or they'll go to South Hall Eden in Franklin, and on and on. They're going out of county. So the people that have come to us and are saying, man, they're going elsewhere, I think we'll have a relatively good impact. If you take 150 guests at a wedding and 75 of them are from out of town, the impact on hotels and dining and the local caterers and DJs and the things like that, we will sub all that out to local community businesses. We intend to do none of that ourselves, so I think we'll have a nice impact as well. Okay. We are secluded from a sound standpoint. We are secluded by a ridge where the property is at. We cannot hear anything on our neighbor's property. I don't think they've ever heard anything on our property. We have some homes around us are in the $300,000-$400,000 range, and I hope none of them. I don't see my neighbors here. None of them are complaining. I think they're going to see our property going up in value, and hopefully theirs as well. The parking is obscure. We don't plan to put up big signs. If anything, we'll build a stone mailbox and put a W in it that stands for our name and the Wren's Nest both, and that'll be about it. We'll be very discreet. Eventually, we'll have handling your alcohol question issue, et cetera. We'll eventually have 2 employees on site, one person doing just bookings and cleaning the house, cleaning the property, and another one keeping up the grounds, mowing the lawn, string trimming, et cetera. We don't think there will be much of a need for ancillary things like tents or setups or things like that brought in. We don't intend to do that. We'll have the barn, alcohol only by a licensed bartender. I think we put in we're going to try to be done around 9 o'clock. Our neighbors are saying, man, Troy Denson, it's like a wedding is probably going to go later. Go to 10 o'clock and let them be cleaned up and be out of there by midnight or whatever. So I think our neighbors are all pushing us hard to do it. We are going to require that all vendors be pre-approved, that they carry liability insurance, that the renters carry liability insurance. We'll carry insurance as well. So I think we'll be highly insured. I know we will be highly insured as well. And that's it. So we thank you for listening to our ideas and would love to hear questions.
Any questions?
I just have a couple. The barn that you're constructing, it's going to be, I know that you're moving here and then you're pre-assembling on the slab there. It's going to be heated and cooled, and so a lot of your venture will be inside, weather permitting during warm weather. Some stuff may be outside as well. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, is that all you all have now? Okay.
That was my beautiful daughter you saw a picture of.
Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request.
I'm Tiffany Phillips, Commissioner for this district, and I support this application. I think it'll be a wonderful asset to this community in the Rockville area. And I have not received any phone calls on this, and I don't see any issues with it as long as the neighbors are okay with it.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. Wait just a minute. Do we have any questions of Commissioner? We appreciate the commissioners coming out and give us information. You folks are out there in the trenches every day. Thank you. Anyone else? Close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
Move to be approved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Thurtain, Thane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
It is approved. The next item we have is a request by Josh Cannon, and this has to do with a fire hydrant. What do you have on that, please?
Hi, application 2012-55 filed by Josh Cannon involves property located at Old Nashville Highway. It's a 2-acre site zoned transportation. They are seeking variance relief to the development regulation requiring a fire hydrant to be located within 1,000 feet of a proposed development for a property located in a transportation zone. This property, you're familiar with it. A couple months ago in August, you considered an application for outdoor landscaping material storage, which was approved as part of a conditional use permit. At the time, it was unknown, even though staff had sought that information prior to that hearing, whether or not the water line that ran in front of this particular property could support the installation of a fire hydrant. It was not until after the public hearing in August that we received the information that we requested from the Consolidated Utility District, indicating that the water line located in front of this property cannot support the installation of a fire hydrant, and they submitted to us the numbers that were submitted in your included in your packet, evidencing that the hydraulic was insufficient. So it does meet the criteria for variance, staff finds, and we recommend approval. We did receive a phone call in opposition from Ms. Lenora Washington, indicating that she was against the proposed request, and that concludes our presentation.
You have a letter from the Consolidated Utility District. Is that what you said?
I do. I believe I included it in your packets, and I have it on the slide here if you'd like to see it.
Okay. Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please.
My name's Josh Cannon. I'm here representing questions.
Do you have any comments? Okay. Do we have questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
Mr. Chairman, based upon the CUD saying they can't, don't have adequate pressure to supply a hydrant there, I make a motion that this variance be approved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Call a roll, please.
Joe Crowell. I'm sorry, I'm out of order. Keith Bratcher.
Yes.
Joe Crowell.
Yes.
Joe Machoto.
Yes.
Jerry Thurtain.
No.
Thane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We all make mistakes, don't we? Do we have anything else? No, sir. Did we overlook you folks out there? Okay. Thank you for being here, though. We are adjourned.